Boys, what's good? It's Herm. I wanted to talk about the Spurs because I think the Spurs actually could be sneakily much better than people expect as soon as next season. Because as we know, they got Victor Wembanyama, but their current roster is better than a lot of people think, and they have quick avenues to get better, which I think people also don't necessarily recognize. So with that being said, let's get into the Spurs next season outlook. We're going to touch on the offseason. We're going to touch on their current players, their key players, why they're going to be better than people think, and we're going to get into all that. But before we do, think about subscribing. It's free, it's easy. If you don't like the channel, you can always unsubscribe later, but let's just get into it right now. All right, so these Spurs, their current lineup right now, I think you're looking at a starting five of Tre Jones, Devin, Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sochan, and Victor Wembanyama. Then you have guys like Malachi Branham off the bench, who was really good as a rookie. Devontae Graham, who was actually a great trade addition for them last year, played really well for them. I really like Zach Collins, did well for them, and they added Sandro Mamukelashvili, and he was really good for them also as kind of this international guy that had been on the Bucks, was always good in summer league, but hadn't really found his NBA way yet, but they brought him on the Spurs and he was good. So let's just get into the key players. Let's just start it off with why the Spurs are going to be surprisingly good next season, and it's because of these key guys. Starting off with Victor Wembanyama, power forward / center. Victor Wembanyama, 7'5", will be the 2023 number 1 overall pick, is called the best prospect since LeBron James. A lot of people have called him the best prospect in the history of team sports, which I think is a little aggressive. I even think maybe LeBron was a slightly better prospect, but Victor is crazy. Once in a generation type guy. They got David Robinson, they got Tim Duncan, now they get Victor Wembanyama. They get some of the best draft luck we've ever seen, and they get some of the best draft players we've ever seen. Was voted the French League MVP, best young player, best defender, top scorer, and top blocker this season. Was hands down the best player in that league as a teenager. Was phenomenal. Was the best young overseas performer that we've seen since Luka Doncic, who was the MVP of the EuroLeague at, I believe, 18 years old. Projected stats, I think he's probably going to average somewhere from 18 to 25 points per game. I think 18 is kind of the floor. I really do think he's that good. He's going to come in and give you like 18 and 8 immediately at the low end, but could be something like 25 and 12. I think the potential's there for that too. He's just huge. He's a monster. He plays like a guard, but the biggest question for Victor will be, how many games does this dude play? That's going to be a constant concern, because even though he played every game in the French League this year, props to him for that, the Spurs are known for load management. They're going to try to bring him along slowly, whether he wants to or not, but Victor is going to be a very good player in year one and could be a fringe all-star level player in year one. Number 2, we're looking at Jeremy Sochan, power forward, called the next Rodman 2.0. A lot of that is because of the hair, it's because of the one-handed free throw, but it's also because of the elite defense and tenacity on that end of the floor. He went kind of viral last night because he asked why King James was flopping so much if he's the king, you know. So that went kind of viral on Twitter, but I don't know why you're doing that when you've been home for months, but props to him. He's got a real fighter's mentality, and I like it. Was an all-rookie member this season. Great rebounder as well for a forward, and can be kind of a point forward role. Was compared to guys like Draymond Green and Ben Simmons coming in, and I think that's realistically what he is. A great defender, a really good passer for a forward, and a good rebounder, but his offensive game, I think, has more upside than those guys because he's willing to put in the work. This guy works super hard. Jeremy Sochan is the perfect teammate for Wemby, and this is going to be a great duo going forward. I don't know if Jeremy Sochan is going to be a guy who scores 20 points per game, but if he ends up getting there some point down the road, it's going to make the Spurs really dangerous. But Spurs fans are going to be delighted to watch this duo of Sohan and Victor Wembanyama be the two of this franchise going forward. He's the perfect screener, passer type guy for Victor. 11 points per game this season, 5 rebounds and 3 assists. Only 56 games, did deal with some injuries, but I think a lot of that was because they were tanking, so we should see more from him next season. Next, shooting guard Devin, Vassell, another guy who I really like. Former lottery pick, is a slippery scorer, sliding off screens, getting to the rim, and is improving his jump shot, becoming a reliable three-point shooter. He was either 37 or 38% from 3 this this year on pretty good volume. It was getting better. He started out pretty low and he just continues to get better. He's improved his scoring every year. It's jumped from 5 points per game to 12 to this year was 19. He's a good scorer. He's a bucket getter. He's a guy who could be an all-star. He's that level of talent as a scorer and is a decent defender who can rack up steals. 19 points per game, 4 rebounds and 4 assists, but only played 38 games with some lingering injuries. Hopefully he can get that together, but could be the leading scorer for this Spurs team. He is a bucket. Next, Keldon Johnson, small forward, also a bucket. Has experience playing for Team USA, which I think was super valuable for him. He's a bucket getter. That's what he is. He's going to get buckets. Shown to be a great shooter. He shot, I believe, 40% in the year before this one. Struggled this year from shooting, but I believe that he can get it back and improve as a shooter. He's pretty young. I believe he's only 22, even though he's going to be entering, I think it's his 5th year. It's either his 4th or his 5th year, but he's pretty young. He's one of the younger players in his draft class, he was, and it's just continued to improve every year, but he's physically imposing. They call him big body because he's not afraid to bruise. He gets down towards the basket, he throws shoulders in, he finishes through contact. He's very good at that. 22 points per game this past season, was the Spurs leading scorer, 5 rebounds per game and 3 assists in 63 games played, the most games played we've seen from their guys so far. But Keldon Johnson is a bucket. I don't think Keldon is going to be the best player for this franchise moving forward. I think you could say he was their best player last season. Vassell probably has higher upside. Even though Sohan may not be outscoring Keldon Johnson, probably provides more for you, and Victor Wembanyama provides more for you. But if Keldon Johnson is your 3rd option offensively, you're going to have a really good team because this dude is a 20-point per game scorer potential type of guy. So if that's your 3rd best bucket getter, then you're really good because Wemby will be a higher scorer than that at some point, and Devin Vassell has the potential to be a better scorer than that as well. So I think these guys combined is a great offensive group. Keldon Johnson not great defensively, but with guys like Wemby and Jeremy Sochan, they have defenders to be able to survive stuff like that. Point guard Tre Jones. I actually really like Tre Jones. I think he's one of the most underrated point guards in the league. Is a pure point guard, a floor general, a traditional type of point guard. Does not turn the ball over, makes smart decisions. He's very, very kind of, calm, collected. He does what he wants to do. Is a pretty decent defender for 6'1", gets a lot of steals. He doesn't get targeted as much as you'd expect someone who's 6'1" to be. With Victor on the floor, maybe they target Tre Jones a little more, but he has held his own to this point, and I think that can stand up. 13 points per game this year, 4 rebounds and 7 assists to just like 1.5 turnovers. He basically has a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, which again is one of the better marks in the league. He's phenomenal at not turning the ball over. And a good passer. He's just a good passer. He makes his teammates better. I think he'd be great with Victor in the pick and roll, throwing him lobs. I think Tre Jones is a guy you want to invest in going forward. He's a restricted free agent. He may get somewhere from 10 to 15 million a year, but the Spurs should match that. They should bring Tre Jones back. He's an important piece for this team, and I think he makes the team better. And the last guy I want to talk about individually that's currently on the team is shooting guard / small forward Malachi Branham, who really came on over the second half of the year. Some of their guys were injured, they weren't on the floor. He would have been 3rd team all-rookie. What do I mean by that? There are no 3 teams. There are 2 teams for all-rookie. Jeremy Sochan was 2nd team. But Malachi Branham, while he might not have been a top 10 rookie, was pretty easily a top 15 rookie to me. It was one of the first guys out from making that. He was a good player as a rookie. Good scorer, was a great shooter in college, like near 40%, I believe, and he will be a top-end 6-man if that's what his role is going forward. And even Coach Pop, very high praise for him. He said he will be a heck of a player. He believes a lot in Branham, and the whole staff there does as well. He's a great player, and he's going to continue to develop as a very good player. 10 points per game, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists in 66 games. But the sneaky part is that he started 32, which was much higher than I expected, and he ended up starting a lot of games down the stretch and was a very important piece for them. Now let's talk about how they are a free agent destination for 2023 offseason. They have $40 million in cap space. They have a ton of money to spend. If I'm them, I'm throwing the bag at Brook Lopez. Why? Because I want one of the best rim protectors and spacers. I think Brook Lopez is the perfect fit next to Victor Wembanyama because it allows Victor to play that roaming free safety type type role we've seen Robert Williams play in Boston defensively, and we've seen the Lakers use with Anthony Davis in this Nuggets series, because it allows him to come in from the weak side and get blocks all over the place, and it doesn't put him in the danger of fouling the center all the time. So I think it would keep Victor out of foul trouble, and it would allow him to maybe even get more blocks than he would if he was playing the traditional center. So I think Brook Lopez is the ideal fit for this Spurs roster and should be the initial target in free agency. Fred VanVleet is a veteran point guard, would be pretty nice. Good passer, gets steals kind of like Tre Jones. Just pretty much an older, more polished version of Tre Jones. I think Tre has that kind of potential, but right now Fred VanVleet's a better player, so maybe you look at that. Austin Reeves to me is another guy, if I'm them, I throw the bag at. I think the max he could get is like 4 years, 98, which I think you do pretty easily. He's that guy. He's been the Lakers' third best player this entire half of the season, maybe even the whole season if you want to talk about it that way. Austin Reeves has emerged as a very good player, good passer, pretty solid defender, and like a 20-point per game scorer kind of reliably. Cam Johnson would be a nice fit at the power forward. Is a guy who can space the floor and play some defense. I think Grant Williams, similar type thing to Cam Johnson. And then some interesting trade options. Chris Paul would be nice as a really traditional point guard. Again, just kind of like the more proven version of Tre Jones. And you get him in there to be throwing lobs to Victor, to be kind of the pick and roll partner with Victor. And I think Chris Paul would do a great job at making him better, as well as someone like Jordan Poole, who I think the Warriors might look to move, but has a ton of upside still, is a bucket. And if you get him with the right coach, Gregg Popovich, then I think that there's a good chance he could turn out to be a very good player. So I would definitely think about Poole if I'm them. There aren't a ton of teams I would suggest to really look at Poole, but the Spurs are one of them. And finally, head coach Gregg Popovich will always be the biggest reason why this team can overachieve. He's why they're making the play-in with DeJounte Murray as their best player. For his career, 1366 and 761 for a 640 winning percentage, 5-time NBA champion, 3-time coach of the year, 4-time All-Star game head coach, meaning his team had the best record going in. That's usually how they select it. He has coached Hall of Famers like Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. Also, coached Kawhi Leonard as well and did a great job in developing him. Arguably the greatest coach in NBA history, has made the playoffs in 22 out of 27 seasons as the coach, and he has the most regular season wins in NBA history. This dude is a legend and is the perfect coach for Victor, for this team, and to help them overachieve. So what should we expect with the Spurs this offseason and next season? On the low end, I think we're looking at 30-ish wins and a team that just misses the play-in tournament. Kind of like a team like the Jazz this year, where they fight in a lot of games, they're really spunky, but don't end up making the play-in tournament, but they still get a good pick, and I think the Spurs would be happy with that happening. But I think they're more interested in kind of going all in. They're not going to rush this, but they're going to put a good team around Victor to help him succeed. On the high end, I think you're looking at 45 to 48 wins, so either 3 to 6 games over 500, and a team finishes like 6th or 7th, just above the play-in or right in the play-in, I think is the Spurs' ceiling, because it kind of depends on how great Victor is, right? I think the 3 guys in the middle here, Vassell, Keldon, and Sohan, are great pieces around him and are super underrated. So with those guys and who they're going to add this offseason, whoever that's going to be, I think it allows them to be that level of team. I think they can get that high. I think anyone thinking they're going to be like a legitimate contender is probably mistaken, but they can be a very good team. They should try to grab a key free agent like Brook Lopez, maybe trade for an interesting young piece like Poole. 3 potential 20-point per game scorers in Wemby, Keldon, and Vassell. They need to retain Tre Jones. That should be one of their main offseason goals to me. Bring that guy back. He's a very good stabilizing point guard. And if you're on the higher end of wins, expect 1 All-Star. The media will probably make a push for Victor to make the All-Star game in his rookie year. I think he'd be the first guy since Blake, and Blake's was technically his second year. So if he's on the higher end of wins, expect 1 of them. If it's not Wemby, I think it could be Keldon or Vassell if they make a leap this season, because both guys already like 20-point per game-ish scores. So if one of them takes a jump to 25, 26-point per game scores next to Victor, one of those guys could be the All-Star. But if you're a betting man, I'd bet Victor is the All-Star if they have a guy make it in year 1. I think he could be that good. But That's it. The Spurs are going to be better than people think. They could be surprisingly good. I like the young pieces they have. I like Sohan, Keldon, Vassell, Malachi Branham, Tre Jones. Even guys like Zach Collins was really good. Devontae Graham was good for them last year. And bringing Mamu back as a restricted free agent should also be a priority. So I think that they can be better than people think. They're going to be better than people think. And with getting Victor, it propels them into a potential playoff team as soon as next season. But let me know what you think. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, this breakdown, and I love their duo. Sohan and Victor is going to be so fun to watch. But thank you for watching this video. That's going to be it for me today. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace.